Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGeek webinar series, our endeavor to empower techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is the key in enhancing our performances and for our growth as professionals. With this principle in mind, TechGeek has initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to get a crisp insight of various domains. Today's webinar is 20th in the series and the first in webinar series on testing, giving insights into test planning and control. Our guest speaker today is Mr. Ganesh Sahai, Quality Manager at Adobe Systems India Private Limited. Ganesh graduated from IIT Delhi and is currently pursuing management from IIM. He is also the co-founder for multiple startup companies in the field of IT, marketing, and academics. At Adobe, he set up teams from scratch for various Adobe products spanning mobile, desktop, enterprise apps, and hosted services. His zeal for innovation has got 16 of his ideas patented. He owns the Test to the Best, a community for testers. Gentlemen, this presentation will continue for next 45 minutes and we will take our questions in the last 15 minutes. In the meanwhile, you can post your queries on techgeek.com or through the chat pane available in the webinar software. Without further ado, I introduce to our guest speaker, Ganesh.
Hi, thanks Bharat, and welcome everybody to this webinar. So let me straight away get into the presentation. Okay, so as Bharat shared with you, this is a series on testing that we are doing at TechGeek, and we are going to cover 3 areas. The first is test planning and control, and followed by test analysis and design, and subsequently test execution and reporting. So what we are going to focus today is more on test planning and control. And the agenda for the webinar is going to be, I'll just start with a brief about in an overview about test planning. I'll talk about test mission, objectives, and strategy, and then we'll do a walkthrough on what a test plan is and how to go about it, and then we'll touch upon the test control part, primarily focusing on process planning, and then the role of quality goals and metrics driven control. Okay, so for any test project, we start with defining the what, the why, and the how for a test project, and then based on that we need to we ultimately want to come to a structure where we can see all the items that we need to take care of, what are the timelines in which we want to take these items, what are the resources that are available to us or we need to arrange them, what is the budget that we have, and what are the risks that we are ready to take, and accordingly set expectations for all the stakeholders. And as we start the project, we need to evaluate the progress, and depending upon how our progress is coming along, we need to exercise control. So the overall idea is to successfully deliver on objectives using an appropriate strategy while pursuing a broader mission. So let us try to understand the what, why, and how of a test project, and how do they associate with our objective, strategy, and mission. So test mission is the what part of a test project. Typically it is the overarching goal for the whole test team. So let us say there is a quoting project, and the idea is that to make sure that the ported features are working as they were in the earlier platform. So let us say the application was designed for Windows platform, and then it is to be ported on the Linux version. So the overarching test mission could be the Linux version should work just like Windows version, or it could be that no high priority bug should be experienced by the customer in the shipping version. There could be different priority reports generated by the customers bugs, but the mission is that, let's say, in high priority, high, medium, low, very low, so there should be no issue which is a very high priority reported by the customer. That could be one of the test mission. Now, so it can vary from team to team, and they have to see various aspects of the project, typically from the point of view of the end customer, and what are the needs or the problems that they're trying to solve in that, and how stringent they have to be in some areas or not in some areas, and accordingly have that broad mission. So if you typically look again at some of the manufacturing setups, for example, and the quality practices over there, so there is a very popular concept of zero defect shipments. So zero defect shipments are that they define various categories of defects, and then for a particular category, if that defect is there, then the whole lot gets rejected. It will not be sent out to the customers. So that could be some kind of a test mission. Now, why we are doing this? We have certain quality targets, and each and every organization again defines what their quality targets are, and then keeping in mind various objectives. So the quality targets are let's say subset of the mission, and then the test policy would define the objectives of the whole exercise, that why we need to do this. So one of the primary reasons is that we want to detect bugs and defects in the software product, that is the software module that is getting built up, and the other objective is that once you detected is you have to generate pick up this raw data and generate information and share it with the relevant stakeholders, and then whatever risks that are discovered, how do you go about managing that? So that has to be defined in the test policy. And then the test policy will also cover that what are the processes that we need to follow and why we want to have those processes. These processes could be how to why do we need to capture the customer reports, or why do we need to do a pre-release that is a beta release to the customers, or why do we need to do peer reviews. So things like that. And then for various items mentioned over here, in order to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of testing, we need to measure them, because as the adage goes, you can't improve it if you can't measure it, and matrices come very handy for that purpose. So a test policy can say why we want to use certain matrices and what efficiency and effectiveness of testing we want to measure through this. And the test strategy is broadly the how part. That is, how we are going to achieve our test mission and policy. And there are various methods and approaches to this. So for example, quality goals and metrics driven is could be one of the test strategy that we'll set quality goals and define matrices and use that as a test strategy. And I'll discuss it in little detail in my presentation. Risk based could be another one. that is, you classify each and every item in terms of the risk associated, and there are various techniques to measure the risk associated with different items, and then accordingly you prioritize the test execution activities for that. And also, as you go along, depending on the course of the project, how the risk levels are changing, so accordingly prioritization could be done. And then experience based, that you have people in the team who have experience on delivering on these software modules, and based on their judgment, you strategize from time to time the how part. If we take academically, the approaches can be classified broadly into two categories: preventive and reactive. Preventive is that you plan in advance in order to make sure that you don't get into traps. And reactive is that some unplanned thing came up, right, and you did not foresee it, right? So, and then so for example, let's say you are doing a mobile application development, and suddenly a new architecture or device came up, or you were not aware of it, and the management decision was to include that in your rollout strategy. That is, they are going to support that platform and device. Now, so that at that point of time, it will be a reactive strategy. And further adding on to it, they can be classified into analytic and risk type, or model driven, that you have standard models to follow. For example, let's say it could be for example, services follow a CMM model, like that. Or methodological, that is, you have a set of checklists against which you keep on checking and making sure that you are following the strategy. Or it could be standard compliant. So for example, your test planning would be on the lines of IEEE 829 standard, things like that. And then other could be dynamic and heuristic, in the sense that you don't have a very formal process in place for test planning, but depending upon the various people in your team, you leave it up to them to get started, and then as and when various situations arise in the due course of testing, then they figure out at that point of time what to do. So so for example, let's say for 3 days, if the build was failing, and then you lost 3 days of testing, now how do you cover up for that? So is it you reduce the scope, or is it that you put in extra hours? But it's pretty much nothing formal or documented. You just go along with the general kind of common sense of the team. Consultative, again, that you consult various people across the board, right? Or you can have a panel of people you consult for various issues, and then accordingly move forward. And regression is that at each and every stage, how much you want to devote towards regression. So that's pretty much the various types of strategies. Of course, it has to cover in detail the various risks, and the risks are primarily of two categories. One is a product risk, and another is a project risk. So product risk comes more from a point of view of that, let's say there was bad quality of code that was written. So the number of bugs that you were expecting is much higher than you what anticipated, and hence the time estimate that you did for finding bugs, logging bugs, and closure of the bugs is, let's say, almost double of what you anticipated. So that's a product risk. Project risk is like a management decision to add another platform for test coverage without extending the final shipping date. These kind of things. Entry exit criteria are again what is getting covered into the test strategy. That is, for each and every milestone, what is your entry criteria and what is your exit criteria. So whether it is alpha or beta or GM, or if you are following an agile model, that at various various milestones. So for each sprint, what is your entry criteria and what is your exit criteria, and accordingly, based on the exit criteria, you will you will allocate the story points for the stories that you were implementing in that particular sprints. And if those exit criteria are not fulfilled, then you don't score those story points, and then they go as product backlog for the next sprint. So I'll primarily focus in today's presentation on uh, the core of the planning exercise, and the core document which covers all this is the test plan. And a widely used standard for this is the IEEE 829. Now this standard can be used both for master test plans and the level test plans. Now when I say master test plan and level test plans, you can say that so let us say a browser like Firefox. Now there could be a master plan for the various top level activities, like related to installation, or related to security, things like that. And then each of these can have their level test plans, which will go into greater details. So for example, the preferences, each and every preferences, what all we need to do in that. And then you can replicate the same template IEEE 829 for the level test plans also. And then I'm going to share something very radical after I covered this more popular and structured approach to test planning, IEEE 829, with the radical notion of a 10-minute plan. But let me first cover 829, then we'll go into that. Okay, so the IEEE 829 is a industry standard template given by IEEE, and it says that in your test plan you should have the following things listed. What are these things? So these are test plan identifier, introduction, test items, feature to be tested, feature not to be tested, approach, item pass fail criteria, suspension criteria, resumption requirements, test deliverables, testing tasks, environmental needs, responsibilities, staffing and training needs, schedule, risk contingencies, and approvals. So test plan identifier is just a kind of a any identifier, depending upon how you tag your documents across the organization. It could be a numerical number, or it could be an alphanumerical number, right? So you can define your own way if there is no company standard that exists. So that's what the test plan identifier is. Introduction section would describe a brief about what the project that you are doing, and and the testing activities that will be done. Test items are the various items that you are planning to test in this project, right? And these would be the broad level items that you are going to cover. It will be including functional as well as non-functional, and subsequent to that, you have a more detailed listing of things like features to be tested. So it will list all the features. So for example, if I take the example of browser, it will take things like how to test bookmarks, the address bar, right, the preferences, right, favorites, right, so on and so forth. And then the other part is feature not to be tested. So for example, it might say that, let's say Firefox does not support HTML5, just for the sake of discussion. So it can say it will not support that kind of a format. So the features that are not to be tested are also specified, so that it sets a clear-cut expectation for the people who are going through this test plan. And what is the approach going to be? This could include things like either we are going to do all the testing manually, or we are going to do 50% manual, 50% automated, or is it that only the web services part or the APIs part is going to be automated and the rest of it would be manual, things like that. And then item pass fail criteria, that what is our criteria for items getting passed and items getting failed. So let's say for bookmark feature pane in the browser, that what are the top level things that must pass, and if they fail, then we say that this feature will not be certified, things like that. And also things like in terms of this being not resolved among the engineers, a test engineer and a developer, then who's going to decide what is pass and what is fail. So there has to be an escalation path. Let us say in some organizations there is a format of having a a review council or a review board where it is referred to, and they meet periodically to take up these unresolved issues. And similarly, suspension criteria and resumption requirements, that under what condition the testing will suspend, and then subsequently under what condition the it will resume. So that can be specified into this plan. It could be like that if say the daily build which comes, if it doesn't pass the acceptance test, the build acceptance test, then the testing on that build will be suspended till the time a new build is released, either the same day or the next day, and then the resumption would be done on the next build. So that could be one of the things. And then the various test deliverables, which includes definitely this test plan, and there are other things like what are the test design specifications, what are the test case specifications, what are the test incident reporting specifications, what are the test summary report specifications, things like that. And I'll cover in detail. We'll go over the IEEE document just in a while and see what all there, and also I'll cover an example where we will see what are the different things for let's say a corporate payroll system that could be there in a typical test plan. And as I'm going through this, maybe you can either on your laptop open up a notepad or whatever, or take a piece of paper and pen, and whatever project you are working on, start to list down the items that I have written over here, and what could be there related to your project. So that way you'll be able to relate back to what I'm saying, and how it is being taken care in your project, and if there is a missing gap, then you can go back and try to understand why it is not there. Is it by design or is it an oversight? Okay. All right. Next is the various testing tasks that need to be taken care of. Let's say things like performance testing, memory leak testing, all that stuff. And then the environmental needs. Now this is again a very critical piece in a test plan, in the sense that whatever software module you're working on, we need to be very clear about the environment that is it is going to work on. So you will get that detail from the documents like the product requirement document or the PRDs, or the service require documents which are there. So request documents which are there. Now, so what are the examples of this? The example of this could be, so let's say there is a desktop application and it will run on Windows 7 and Windows 2000, and it will run on Mac, right, and various versions of Mac, and which languages, right, it will run on. Or if it is, let's say, a mobile application, then it will run on let's say Windows Mobile or Symbian OS, then which versions, right? If it is going to support any service pack, then that needs to be listed down, and the languages like that. At times, the environmental needs also have the minimum requirements on your system. So, for example, let's say your desktop should have a minimum of 1 GB RAM, and 1 GB RAM, and let's say 2 GB free on your C drive. So this could be one of the environmental needs. And then why we need to have this is because this will be very, very useful in terms of setting the expectations of the scope of testing, because devoid of this, it is open-ended. So this is a very critical section, and it will come in very handy when you are actually planning your test execution, because so based on your the platforms, the languages, and the various configurations, you will make kind of a multi-dimensional matrix. Now, covering this whole matrix can turn out to be a mammoth task, actually, right? And in fact, testing the whole matrix may not even be a very intelligent way of doing the testing, and therefore you have to use various techniques to minimize your effort, but at the same time have the least risk. Now, one of the ways to do it is that based on your experience level, you can optimize this matrix. So let us say that the test cases that you have written, they are categorized in 4 levels of priority. Priority 1 is very high priority, then priority 2, priority 3, and priority 4. And let's say on an English version, you are going to, on an English version on Windows 8, you are going to cover, on English, you are going to cover all your test cases. So let us say there are, in Windows 8, there are 7 flavors. Now, are you going to cover all of them on all the 7 flavors? Probably not. Then how do you optimize it? So one is that, whatever is the lowest minimum, you will definitely test that, because a higher subset, it is expected that it will work on that. So that configuration you will definitely have, right? And then either you stagger on the other flavors, or you can say that all the high priority test cases, test 1, let's say priority 1, I'll cover on all the remaining flavors, and maybe randomly spread the other priority on the other flavors. That could be one strategy. And now next could be that you also have a localized version. Let's say the other set of languages that you support is French, Italian, German, and Spanish, right? Or so how do you now optimize on that? So if, let's say, the prior experience tells you that wherever the hierarchy category characters are there, they need to be tested thoroughly, and the rest of the functionality remains almost intact. So now you will have to identify those test cases and mark them as with some keyword, like let's say figs, right? And test them on prioritize them on that metrics. And the other functionality, you will say I will test only priority 1, and that too also, let's say I'll cover it on French, not on Italian, German, not on Spanish, like that. So this is something you will have to take a call depending upon the resources and the time that you have and the experience you have had on testing these platforms, and what is the bug find rate on these platforms. And then mark the metrics on this test metrics. What are the combinations that you're going to cover, and what is the level of testing that you're going to do, and put that metrics into this test plan, because that will set the expectations of the stakeholders right. Now, as I told you, 100% testing is not feasible. So it might happen that on some random configuration, customer reports an issue, and then it comes to you that why was this not tested? So then you can always go back and say, given our resources and time and budget, this is the scope that we had defined for our testing, and it does not fall into our scope that we had planned out. Now, of course, if it comes in the in the scope that you have defined out in this coverage metrics, that's a different issue altogether, and you need to do a kind of a post-mortem analysis of what went wrong. So, and there you need to refine your maybe planning was good, but something was missing at the execution level and the reporting level. So there are two aspects to it, but this coverage metrics sets the scope very clearly, and it also helps you to understand to what level you have to cover what all aspects in your project. And the other fallout of this is that the test engineers, when they start to plan out their execution, they can list down these combinations, and then plan out for, let's say, 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, how much it will take for them to do one cycle, then repeat that cycle, and they have a clear-cut picture of where this project is headed for the next 2 months or 3 months for them, or sometimes even for 1 year. Of course, as you hit various issues, like for example, let's say new requirements came in, or let's say the bug fix rate went slow, or let's say one person went on a leave due to medical reasons, or he's just getting married, so it took 1 month off, so things like that. So it really helps. So that's pretty much about environment needs. Responsibilities, definitely things like who's the manager for the project, who are sub managers for this project, if there is one senior manager, and then who are the leads, right? Who is responsible for automation, who's responsible for performance testing, so set clear-cut responsibilities in this. Staffing and training needs, of course, once the responsibilities have been defined, so you have the number of staff that is needed, and if for this project any particular training need is there. So for example, let's say it's a hosted services solution, right, where performance is very critical, right, but you know that the current staff that you have, they have no exposure to any performance testing tool. So then you need to identify which tool you're going to use, and have a training lined up for them. And then of course it will cover a broad schedule for the various milestones, not in terms of what are the nitty-gritties of an execution plan, but a broad schedule of various milestones. So let us say either it is going to have 12 sprints, or if it is a conventional model, then when is alpha, when is beta, when is RC and GM, things like that. And of course you have to list down specific risk and contingencies, right? So a risk could be, for example, let's say you are planning to cover Windows Mobile, and you are not sure what devices may come up in the next 12-month period. So that's a risk, right? So if let's say 10 more devices come in, but you have planned only for 5, then you have to accommodate that. Of course, if the management decision is that you have to test on that. So those kind of risks, and what are the contingencies? So contingencies could be, okay, you have already talked to let's say an outsourcing company which can supply you temporary contractors to take care of the additional testing needs that may come up. Or the risk could be that the bug fix rate is very slow, right? The adequate testing could not happen, and the lot of bug fixes started to happen towards the end of the project. So in order to take care of the increased load, again the contingency could be to hire contractors and do this. And of course it has to have an approval chain, so that all the stakeholders, especially the management chain, the senior management chain is involved, and you get a sign off from them as to what all things you are planning in this test plan. So I'll just go through a corporate payroll system, and I'm sure you would have in this time noted down what are the items that relate to your project. And see, this is just a template, and you may choose or not to choose the items covered over here. It all depends upon for you to decide. But this is a very good comprehensive list if you follow every time as a template. For some of the sections, you can leave it as not applicable. So for example, feature not to be tested. If there is nothing of that sort, you can say not applicable. It's okay. So yeah, so I just wanted to highlight some of the things in the test deliverables. So the deliverables, which is like test design specification, test case specification, test procedure specification, test item transmittal report, test log, and test incident report, and test summary report. So let us cover this through an example. So here is a document which covers the IEEE standard for software test plan, and so if you see, so this covers the various things like the scope, references, definitions, the test plan, the test design specification, test case specification, test procedure specification, all these things. I'm just going to touch upon this. I've shared the link in this presentation. This is a standard by IEEE, so you can have a look at it in detail anytime online. So let me cover quickly the various things. So first thing is that you will come across various definitions, and I'll cover some of the key ones which we are going to refer to. So for example, test case specification. So test case specification is a document which will specify the inputs and the predicted results, and a set of execution conditions for the test items. It's like that, if you have to, let's say test dragging of a URL from the address bar into the bookmark panel of the Firefox browser. Now the test case could be step 1, click on the URL in the address bar, drag it to the folder in the bookmark panel, second step, and third step could be release the mouse. And now the output would be that link should be seen in the bookmark panel, right? Of course, the other test case could be that you click on this link and that corresponding page should open up in the tab. So these could be 2 test cases. And what are the different things that you need to have is what gets covered in the test case specifications. So it is like the input is you need a a binary of Firefox, right? And the operating system that you're going to test on, you will write that. right? So let's say if it is Windows, okay, Windows 8 or Windows 7, right, like that. And then if it is Service Pack 1 or whatever Service Pack, things like that. And then the steps to carry out the test and the expected output. And of course, if the expected output is not met, then it's a failure and you report a bug for it. And so it's an so that's an event that happened, that is a failure event, and you want to report it, and that is what is covered in the test incident report format, that you specify how you are going to report an event. So bug is an event, and the format for that I'll just touch upon that a little while from now. And then things like so test item is any test object under testing, right? So for example, bookmark is a test object, right? You can say test item transmittal report is again, it contains the current status and the location of the information. So it is a standard report that you want to formalize in your team to share information. Test log is a chronological record of the events that are happening. That is, let's say each engineer day wise, what are the test things they have done, or let's say for a particular module, let's say preferences, what are the different testing that has been done so far. So that is what test log is. Test plan covers all the items that we just discussed. Test procedure is, again, a document specifying a sequence of actions for executing a test. So in the sense that for example, let's say installation of a build. So there could be a procedure to install that build. So that is a test procedure specification. Test summary report, overall, what have we achieved so far, or at a given milestone certification testing. So that is a kind of a summary report. So I think I'll not go much into the theory part of it. So maybe in your free time you can go over this. It has all the theory part. I have covered the basics, and I like to go now into so quickly I'll cover. So for example, what is test case specification, it's that down, test items, input specifications, output specifications, then what are the environmental needs in terms of hardware, in terms of software, right? Then for example, let's say for browser you want how it works with given set of antivirus software, right? So you will list down McAfee, Norton, Symantec, right, that I need those to test it against. And then what are the test procedure specification, all this stuff it goes. So I'll skip this all. You can have a look at it. I want to take you to the example. So here's the example. The example is corporate payroll system test documentation. Now, so the payroll system, broadly what it does is listed over here, that it maintains the employee information. It will maintain the payroll history information. It will prepare payroll checks, which we get, and it will generate tax reports and prepare payroll history reports. And there is a this is phase 1, and there is a phase 2 development plan, but that will be for future phases. Now there are some assumptions which are there, which are listed over here. So for example, that the payroll system will be system tested on only one site. So let us say if it is being used across geographies, so that there could be a risk in that, because all the testing would be done in one location, and multi-geographic testing is not being simulated. You can have various documents which are there in this project. There is a kind of a naming conventions for those documents, or let's say project planning documents, a system reference manual, program manuals, control programs, and test documentation. And so this is what is listed over here. So let us look at the test plan now for this. So this is following IEEE 829 standard, this test plan for the payroll system. So it has an identifier, introduction, what are the different test items, like what are the program modules, job control procedures, user procedures, operator procedures, then the features to be tested, feature not to be tested, then approach, for example, for different modules like conversion module testing, job stream testing, interface testing, security testing, recovery testing, performance testing, regression testing, all those things. And then item pass fail criteria and suspension and assumption criteria, and what are the test deliverables and test tasks. So let us look each one of them, what they have done over here. So if you see at the top, they have written AP05-0103. So this is the kind of identifier they have used. And then in the introduction, they have listed down the objective. So objective of this test plan is for the corporate payroll system is to detail the activities required to prepare for and conduct the system test, to communicate to all possible parties the tasks as they are to perform and schedule to be followed in performing the task, to define the source of information used to prepare the plan, to define the test tools and environment needed to conduct the system test. So this is the objectives they have in this plan, and they are given a background of that last year the XYZ corporate system programming department developed a new general ledger system at the request of corporate accounting department. A request was made at the same time for new corporate payroll system to be developed that would interface with the general ledger system. And then the whole quick summary of what this is. So this what the background is, and then a brief scope that this test plan will cover a full system test for the corporate system. So they are given a para of that, and the references to the various documents that we refer to in this plan. And then they cover the various test items. So for example, the program modules. The program modules are the source code and the executable code, which is the library they are talking about, right? And if there is any naming conventions for the members, they have written in over there. Various procedures, for example, the application program, the utility program, and so forth. And then other procedures. And in features to be tested, they have listed, so for example, database conversion, complete payroll processing for salaried employees only, complete payroll processing for hourly employees only, complete payroll processing for all employees, general ledger transaction building, security, recovery, performance. And feature not to be covered, for example, report related to equal employment opportunity commission compliance. So that report will not be generated and they will not test it. And then internal training schedule reports or salary performance review reports. So they will not generate that. And then the approach part, in which they cover like what they're going to do for conversion testing, for job stream testing, interface as for example, let's say how the interface between the payroll and the general ledger system, right? So what are that if this is critical, then they are writing it down in the test plan that this is a very critical component and needs to be prioritized over other items. Security testing, what exactly broadly they are going to cover. So for example, in this they have written attempted access without a proper password to the online data entry and display transactions will be tested. And at times each of these items could be having a lot of more details, and they could be very comprehensive plans in themselves. So for example, security testing and performance testing, and it could have a link to those documents. So for example, there are set of performance requirements as are listed over here in AP01-01, right? And there could be a performance test plan taking care of all those things, in terms of what are the different conditions, environment conditions against which you test, what are the use cases that will be covered, right? And a link to that can be given over here. Similarly, for the regression testing, that what is the broad criteria for the regression testing, in the sense that either at the acceptance level, or at the milestone level, or at the ship level. So again, it's a conscious call of the teams at various levels what kind of regression testing that they want to do and what kind of test they want to cover in terms of priority. But it need to be listed down over here because that sets the expectations for the stakeholders in the right perspective. Um, and then all the other things like item pass fail criteria, which is there. For example, the system must also satisfy the following: memory requirement must not be greater than 64K of real storage, things like that. And then test deliverables, all these test documents which are there. And if there are specific hardware needs, right? So for example, let's say if it is to be tested on the versions of Unix, so whether it is going to be Solaris or XCUX, right, things like that. So those can be listed over here. And then again, software, operating system, communication, any antivirus or any third-party tool, those can be listed over there. And then finally, the responsibilities, in terms of how many that responsibility in terms of that what are the different groups that will be taken care of what modules. So let us say if the installer testing is be taken care of by non-core team, then that needs to be listed, that is the responsibility of the non-core team. Similarly, digital certificates or certificate testing, if security certificates, if that is the handled by another team, that need to be listed over here, things like that. And then you come up with the staffing. So for example, they are listed over here. They need one test manager, one senior test analyst, two test analysts, and two test technicians. And so yeah, so and they need support from one person in the payroll department who will coordinate with them to test this software. So these are, and then finally the top level schedule, right, where they have given reference to the attachment. So that's it. So I think, and then finally the risk contingencies. So for example, I'll just cover one risk. So the top level, if the testing schedule is significantly impacted by system failure, the development manager has agreed to assign a full-time person to the test group to do debugging. And then, approvals of test manager, development manager, quality assurance manager, like that. And yeah, so the attachment. So I think this would have given you a bird's eye view of the basic components of test planning, and how do you do it in a in the industry wide standard which is there, that is the IEEE 829. Let me just go back to my slide deck. Yeah, there it is. And so there is another link which is there, an example of another test plan. So you can refer to that as well. Okay. Before I go into test plan, any questions? Got it. Okay, so okay, let me because there are a lot of questions, so I'll start. So is IEEE based on CMMI? No, it is independent. It is not based on that. Why feature not to be tested is required in the plan? This is to set the expectations right. So at times, for example, let's say you are going with the assumption that the installer testing would be taken care by the other team and not the core team. So but this may not be explicit. So this is again to set the expectation right, that we are not going to test this this module. So this is again for testing the setting the expectations right. Okay. Which order should I start? Okay. Why the fee? Okay. What need of support from? That's not. Yeah, I don't have link to the coverage metrics, but I think we have taken note of it. So in the subsequent sessions, we'll take care of the coverage metrics. Yeah. Um Duration of any test plan. So this question is not clear to me. If you are saying how much time we should devote to prepare a test plan, that depends upon the level of granularity that you want to cover in a test plan. Because sometimes they are very detailed. So it may, for example, let's say if there is a requirement from the customer, then that he wants all the nitty-gritty and details to be covered in the test plan, then you have to go according to what he's asking for. But if it is an internal, then again the internal stakeholders who are there, depending upon what is the expectation over there, so you have to go by that. But um, in my experience, if you have to spend more than a couple of days on a test plan, then it's not worth it. And in fact, in the next section, I'm going to cover an approach which has been experimented at Google, which is this 10-minute plan. So that would be quite an interesting one for you. How to combine manual and automation testing efforts? Uh, okay, this is a very good question, and lot of teams have to struggle with this one. Now, there are various factors to it, in the sense that what is the effort required to automate and what is the return onto it. The best candidate to automate are the regression tests, so that you don't have to spend time again and again doing those same tests again. However, what it takes to automate those regression tests, do you have the required tools or not, right? And what is the money that you have to spend to get those tools? If you don't get those tools, then you have to do manual testing, like that. And if, let's say, you can work with your development team whereby they can give you hooks to automate. So for example, let's say, can they expose some APIs where you can write good white box test harnesses to test the modules, or can they provide an scripting interface to test various modules, or can there be exposed web services, things like that. And a combination of both really works very well, but then it again depends upon the resources that you have, and the technical capability that you have, right? And the overall budget that you have in terms of if you have to buy a new tool. So yeah, so there is no universal answer how to combine them, but what I would say is that try to have a good mix of it, and do automate as much regression testing as you can, provided your builds are stable, and then it does not lead to frequent breaking up of those scripts. So let's say if you have a transitioning UI, and if you automate on that UI, you will have to keep on maintaining those scripts again. So maybe it may not be a good strategy to automate at that point of time. How to go ahead with agile methodologies and test planning? In agile methodology, let's say the Scrum methodology, you have sprints, and typically the recommended sprint is of 20 working days. And the user stories, when you develop, at the same time, the test planning has to go hand in hand with those user stories. And the team, and here the team means all the people, that is developers, testers, all release engineers. And for a given feature, collectively everybody has to work, and till the time each team's work is not done, the overall team doesn't get those story points. So for example, let us say the developer gives a feature, but the testing does not get completed in that sprint, so you will not get the story points. So your the velocity of the project since you have not gained the story points, will not be good. So hence, in agile methodology, the development and the test team have to really work very closely, and there has to be a lot of enablement given in terms of automating the regression testing to make the agile methodology, that is the Scrum methodology, a success. In some organization, it is included in test plan only. No, this is not. I don't get this question. Is this presentation going to be shared with us? Yes, it will be available, right? Yeah. What is staffing? Staffing is the various people who are going to work on the project, the manager, the lead, the test engineer, like that. Okay, I think I'll cover the rest of the questions later. Let me quickly go back to the slide deck. Okay, so I recently came across this 10-minute test plans, and this was shared on the Google testing blog by their test director James Whittaker, and I really like this guy. So the story is like this, that during his career he shared that he has reviewed a lot of test plans, right, and they have a lot of this detail. Uh, and varied kind of test plans. And one of the things that he came across was that the thing with the detailed test plans is that as the project starts, at the beginning of the project, you have all this stuff. But when the project pressure takes on and you are, like this, the requirements are changing, and you are dealing with the execution issues. So these, test plans are forgotten, and updating these test plans become a real headache. So it's a one-time documentation which is hard to maintain, and then it is not really useful. So he did an experiment. The experiment that he did was that he called up his team, and he said that you have to prepare a test plan for this application, and you have to prepare it in 10 minutes. Now obviously he shares that since these people are reporting to him, so they could not say no to him, because ultimately he's going to write their appraisal, right? So they all agreed to do it, and so first time when they did it, they really struggled and they could not do it. And then he said, he insisted, no, you have to do it in 10 minutes. So he gave them another application. Of course, the assumption over here is that the people are familiar with that application to some extent, and these applications were the usual applications, Google applications that people used. So, for example, Google Docs, and things like that. Now, as one iteration to the second iteration and third iteration went, there were interesting discoveries that were seen. So where people were writing paragraphs, they started to write just one sentence, right? And they started to cover a lot of stuff. And ultimately what emerged out was that there were three important aspects. So first was the attributes. Now the attributes were the adverbs and the adjectives that describe high level concepts of the testing. High level concept testing is meant to ensure. And these attributes are, for example, fast, that is related to performance, or usability, usable, security, how secure, accessible, and so forth. And the components are actually the nouns, the names that define these major code chunks related to the above adjectives. And these code chunks comprise the overall product. So these are the classes, the module names, or the feature of the application. And finally, the third one that emerged out was the capabilities, the verbs that describe user actions and activities. So the capabilities are described in terms of the verbs that describe user actions and activities. And the net conclusion that it drew from this exercise was that initially none of the teams finished the experiment in 10 minutes, even eventually also. However, in 10 minutes, they were able to get through both attributes and components or the thing that served a similar purpose. So they started to get that and began documenting capabilities also. And at the end of an additional 20 minutes, most of the experiment had a large enough set of capabilities that it would have been useful starting point for creating user stories or test cases. So what he's saying is that they reached a stage where these people were able to capture majority of the attributes and component in the first 10 minutes, and in the next 20 minutes they were able to capture majority of the capabilities also. So in 30 minutes, they had sufficient material. But how sufficient? So which at least he says to me made experiment a success, because I gave them 10 minutes and hope for an 1 hour, and they had 80% of the work completed in 30 minutes. And isn't 80% good enough? So then he adds, we know full well that we are not getting to test everything, so why document everything? We know full well that as we start testing, things like schedules, requirement, architecture, etc. are going to change. So insisting on planning precision when nothing else obeys such a calling for completeness seems out of touch with reality. 80% complete in 30 minutes or less, now that's what I call a 10-minute test plan. So this is what James Whittaker from Google had to say, that according to his experiment, 30 minutes which covers 80% completeness is good enough for test plan. And if you're going beyond that, maybe it has a lot of fat and fluff which probably you're not going to use actually in reality in your test execution. Now it may vary from project to project, and the product space that Google works on. Let's say if it is a very stringent mission critical device, maybe things like heart pacemaker software for that, or let us say a banking system where client is very finicky. So in services sector, it may be a little different. But then I even read a report from a defense personnel who evaluates the softwares which they procure, and the defense has stringent requirements. And in this blog, which the link I've given, so he shares that eventually he also felt that 30-minute test plan is good enough test plans which cover 80% stuff. So there was a question, how much time we should spend on test plan. I'm sure this would be a radical new insight into the time that you need to spend on the test plan. Okay, so let me move on to test control. Yeah, it's a different topic. 3-4 slides. So I'll quickly cover, in a brief about test control, because I was just talking to Bharat. We are running out of time. So what the test control is, once you've planned everything, as you go into executing it. So what are the various controls that we need to cover? And one of the ways to do it is quality goals and matrices. That you set quality goals and matrices, and you can have either in qualitative terms or quantitative terms. And depending upon these quality goals and matrices, you need to do a process planning, right? Because then it gives processes give a kind of backbone where you monitor these goals and matrices. And then of course you have to do course correction if things are not up to the benchmarks, and then again you go into the replanning exercise. Quickly, quality goals in qualitative terms, there could be things like, we want to achieve work-life balance for engineers, and you may say that the average time spent by an engineer in the company would be so many hours, or in the range of this, so that people are not spending, let's say, 18 hours a day in the office. Each engineer gets security certified, that they have a adequate amount of security knowledge. So you may set a qualitative goal like that, or each test engineers get ISTQB certified, or you can say, well, by the way, these certificate things can be quantified. So I'll share how they can be quantified also. or you can say we'll adopt agile or scrum methodology. So that could be in this release, or adopt peer review process. So things like that. Now quantitative goals could be, what is at any given point of time in your release the open bug count going to be, to fix and to test. What is the deferral rate? That is, if let's say 10% is going to be the deferral rate of the overall bugs, and if it is shooting beyond that, that you need to fix bugs. What is your find rate? You need to monitor that. And is it going as per the expected lines or not expected lines? Because if not going expected line, the find rate is more, then there's a risk with the schedule that we have at hand and the resources. Fix rate, if the fix rate is matching the find rate or not, or if there is a increasing gap, then you need to again analyze that. Testing efficiency, how many bugs are found by the test engineers versus coming from the field. And things like code coverage, automation, percent, bugs found in reviews, customer issues reported, post ship, things like that, could be other qualitative, quantitative goals. Here is an example I'll share with you. I maybe sometime later we can cover in detail more about these goals. But a brief snapshot. Let's say you have a kind of this metrics for your project where we have quality goal. What is the metric that you're going to measure? What is the benchmark metric? That is, this is what you want to achieve. And then for each milestone, where you are. So for example, one of the quality goals, all engineers are testing certified. So the metric you measure percentage of ISTQB certified engineers. The benchmark is that you want to reach 100% in this release cycle. At M1 milestone you are 25%, at M2 you are 50%. So so that gives you a sense of where we are. Early defect discovery, that is in the peer reviews before it goes to system test, you want to find defects. So what is the percentage of those defects found against total defects and bugs? Benchmark could be 50%, but you are at 5%, then it went into 2%. So then why it went into 2% and what needs to be done? So maybe the features are complex and people are not getting enough time to review. So then each sprint maybe you need to pick up less story points, or have sufficient time for reviews. Increase code coverage in automation and increase customer satisfaction, things like that. Yeah. And then process planning in terms of, you need to set processes for review. For example, different artifacts need to be, reviewed, the test plan and the test case. So what is the process for that? You can have different type of reviews, formal, informal, etc. What are the timing of that? What are the responsibilities if you are using any tool? How to use that? What is the release acceptance process, incident, reporting and closure process, bug review, if you have to resolve it and close it, what is the review process for that, and then test reporting process for, let's say, feature coverage or platform coverage, code coverage, bug summary, issues and risks, and then non-functional items like, memory leaks or performance testing, things like that. So, and then in the subsequent section, we'll try to cover the risk-based planning, test estimation, and execution planning. Yeah, so I think we're just running short of time, so we'll take up questions if you have. Okay, let me quickly take some questions. Is test strategy part of test plan? Yes, it is part of the test plan. Okay. I thought that matrices are collected at the end of testing. Yeah, they are collected at the end of the testing, but you need to define them in your test plan, that what are the matrices that you're going to collect. Okay, where do we use this master and level test plan specifically? So master test plan is an overarching plan for your application, right? And for example, I shared with you the browser testing. So you can have an overall plan for testing the browser, but there are subsections to it. So sections like installer, right, or security, or performance, right, or various bigger features like, let's say, bookmarks and things like that. So you need to have detailed test plans for that. So but the template would be the same as in for the master test plan, and you can skip things which are not needed as given in the IEEE 829 standard. How this slide will be shared with you? Yeah, the same link. I think after this mail, after this session, Bharat will send the link. Please mention automated test tools. Well, there are a whole lot of third-party test tools, from HP, IBM. So, for example, Rational has a suite, HP has a suite, and like that. How matrices can be generated? Matrices can be generated either manually or through an automated way. So, for example, if you have a bug logging system in your company, so then you can write a dashboard whereby you can extract information from this system and create reports. In some organizations, you put up a data warehouse, right, and then get all the raw data extracted, transformed, and loaded into the data warehouse, and then load queries to generate the typical reports that you need. So the data warehousing technologies can be used, but if it is you don't want to go that route, then of course you will have to manually collect all the data, maybe in Excel sheet, and then process it to generate the matrices. Okay. How frequently test plan to be revisited? Okay, anytime there is any change in the project in terms of whatever is listed down, let's say change in the feature or change in the resources, right, or the environment, you need to update the test plan. In terms of updating it, and in terms of revisiting, just to refer to it, well, as and when you need information which you don't have handy, or there is a dispute among the stakeholder, you can refer back to an agreed upon test plan, because it has approval from the whole management chain. What are different important metrics one should maintain? This is some I suppose it is metrics you are talking about, not metrics. So metrics is what I listed down, and you can so that's an example set that I shared, but there could be much more than that. So I think I cannot cover right now the whole of that. What is the involvement of business analysts in stress control and planning? This is a big role, because the feature to be tested, and especially not to be tested, environment to be covered, all these things come from business analysts. So I think that's all we have sufficient time for. I'll thank you so much for attending this webinar. I'll hand it over to Bharat.
Thanks, Ganesh, for your session on test planning and control. It was indeed an enlightening session. I would also like to thank our participants for their support in making this webinar a huge success. The recording of this webinar will be made available to you on techgeek.com tomorrow. So see you all next Wednesday at 3 p.m. in our next session on test design and analysis. The speaker for this session is Amit Manohar Kaul, and thank you.